Namaste. Hello and welcome to the Kundalini podcast. That was Zen. This is Tao. I'm Vivek Govekar. This is episode 27. I've been asked in one of the comments that I just received to speak about diet. And that's a wonderful subject. I think I've briefly touched on diet in some other videos, but haven't really gone into detail about the subject by itself. And this is a very complex topic that requires attention. So here goes. Since my Kundalini awakened accidentally, I have a very unique perspective on all of these subjects. So I decided to talk about two things related to the diet. One obviously is, what do you eat in your day-to-day life on an everyday basis? And second, which is a very fascinating topic, is fasting. Several religious traditions, especially the one that I was born into, Hinduism, emphasize fasting. But as with all of the other things that I have mentioned, the way it is practiced by people leaves a lot to be desired, because this is again become a social practice, a ritual, like the cat that I mentioned that was tied to the post, and suddenly that became a tradition by itself without people knowing what the reason was behind it and why it was being followed. So fasting has become that way. So let me first get this off my shoulder, because this has been in my mind for a long time, even before I awakened my Kundalini, and some of the hypocrisy and some of the nonsense that goes along with fasting or with rigidity of diet. I've briefly mentioned how people make a big deal about veganism and what you eat without knowing the importance of it. Fasting, or consuming very little food. Let me start with a very strict definition of fasting. In this case, I do emphasize being strict and disciplined and not being a little loose or unrigid, because that's what it has become right now. The way Hindus practice fasting, and I'm just going to stick to that culture because I know it, but I'm sure variations of this are happening all over the place. Uh, People fast, and there is something called fasting food, meaning the initial idea behind fasting was, and I'll tell you why fasting even exists in religion. First of all, during my Kundalini awakening, I have realized that eating a vegan diet, eating raw, not even just vegan, raw diet of fruit juices, vegetable juices, and not just fruits that you like or are tasty, yummy smoothies, bitter fruits, bitter vegetables that are full of nutrients, full of excellent things that do good things to your body, are the best diet for the energy. Okay? No, you don't need protein beyond a certain point. You're not a bodybuilder anymore. You're not a person trying to gain muscle mass. You're just trying to keep the energy going smoothly. And that responds the best to a raw food diet. Which is why, if you look at the ancient rishis, sages, they ate this, what is called kanda mula. Kanda, and these are roots and tubers, things like that that they found in the forests were the best diet for them. They did not eat meat. Why not? What happens when I eat meat is the energy becomes sluggish. Here's the reason why. The enzymatic processes, the processes required to digest something, are much more intense when you have eaten a meat-based diet, because you need more enzymes. There's a reason why Thanksgiving here in America, people eat turkey and then they feel very sluggish, because your body has spent most of the energy digesting all of that stuff, and there's no other energy left, no other signals being given to the rest of the body to do anything else, and so you feel sluggish. You've had a big diet. It's an evolutionary mechanism. People in the past, about 1,000 years ago, didn't get food on a very regular basis. So when they got it, the body just shut everything else down and started digesting that. Now, you want to feel energetic, you want to be able to do many different things, feel light. If you want that, then the diet you should be getting, you shouldn't be starving, you should be getting a diet which takes care of all of those needs but breaks down quickly in the body. Needs the least amount of enzymes, needs the lowest energy to digest all of that stuff, but gives you all the nutrients. Because if there's an imbalance to the other end, you're starving, obviously, even then you're going to feel low energy, right? That's the reason behind veganism. Because the human body, even though it can digest all kinds of different foods, is running on its optimum capacity, allowing you to do all the other things that you want to do in life while being comfortable in a position that is not, you're not hungry, you're not feeling craving food or feeling low energy, is a vegan diet. Raw foods, fruit juices, vegetable juices, and some meat if you absolutely need it, or some fish, right? This is a balanced regular diet. We either make an imbalance by eating too much meat or too little meat, or just vegan diet and emphasize one of these things. So in a Kundalini sense, again, to emphasize what I have discovered, how it feels afterwards, if you eat a diet heavy in meat, you're going to feel sluggish. The energy is going to feel sluggish. Okay, without any of the baggage that comes from traditional religion of why veganism is good or why meat is good. Just practical concerns. And even in that, feeling sluggish may not be a bad thing sometimes. So you can control the energy. Like, say, for example, I live in a practical life, right? I live in a suburban existence and I have to drop my daughter off to school. But if the energy snake is going all over the place, in certain periods, in summertime, when it's very hot, the energy is more active. In wintertime, it kind of goes a little dormant. So if it's going very active on a very hot day and I have to take my daughter somewhere to her play activities, maybe I will eat a little bit of meat to make it sluggish and not be so active all the time. Okay, so you can use it that way if you don't have any restrictions in your mind already set up about eating meat or eating vegetables, right? How it responds to which diet is more of a concern for me than any of the traditional definitions. I have discarded all of those definitions, and in the first place, I wasn't following any rigid Indian traditions or Hindu traditions to begin with. I never fasted. I never followed what is called upvas. So, to me, this was very easy. This was a very easy transition to make because sometimes the body craves meat. Gopi Krishna, if you look at his videos and read his books, that is an excellent source, by the way. The energy can dictate and want you and direct you in directions that you've never taken before. Sometimes I was directed to eat tobacco. I've never used tobacco in my life. But the energy needed that. And later I found out why. It has nothing to do with bad habit or cancer or whatever. See, tobacco itself has been used in these ceremonies by Incans and Mayans in a very different form. A very concentrated form of tobacco called mapacho has been used in these ceremonies, these religious, spiritual ceremonies. It is one of those substances that is an entheogen. Now, commonly the way it is sold in cigarettes with a lot of fillers and solvents and additives, that's the bad kind of tobacco. And I'm not advocating the use of tobacco, but the energy directed me to use that because for what it was doing in my brain, it needed that. The body has nicotinic receptors. They work along with the tobacco plant. Both the human organism and the tobacco plant have evolved side by side. So has cannabis or marijuana. And I'm not, again, advocating the use of illegal substances, but if you need to use that, well, body has cannabinoid receptors built into it. And we have evolved with this plant. Cannabis has been employed by yogis or rishis or sadhus in India for many centuries. Rastafari, the Bob Marley and his tradition, have been using marijuana as a substance, as an entheogen for many years. How you use it? Is it a recreational substance which is just done to get whacked out? Is tobacco a habit that you have, a bad habit which ends up giving you cancer? That's a different topic altogether. The point being, the energy itself directs you to use some substances sometimes that you have no idea why you're using that. And Gopi Krishna talks about sometimes he had to eat sugarcane a long amounts. Here's the other thing. The energy directs me to eat more sugar. Now, if you look at the regular human physiology, that much sugar would give diabetes or create some problems in a person. I'm fit even after consuming that much sugar because glucose is brain food. The brain works on glucose. The energy doesn't just work on my spine. It goes up all the way here. It fuses my left and right hemispheres and there is a very weird sensation of like bugs going in and going, fusing it together. And that fusion is what leads to the third eye, because those two are fused now, and your left brain and right brain now work together. And that's where all these powers come from, all these psychic abilities and supernatural powers. It's been kept separate for the regular individual, and after an awakening, eventually the energy goes up and starts fusing it. And that's the third eye. Physiologically speaking, anatomically, breaking it down from a 21st century medical professional perspective. So, diet is important, but not in the way you think it is important. So, now I come to fasting and how it's practiced in India or in Hindu cultures or other cultures as well. There is something called upvas. So, on certain days, everybody fasts, right? And if the lady of the house fasts, then everybody else, whether you want to or not, whether you're a believer or not, you're going to fast. You're going to. But it's not just staying hungry. What it has evolved into is people have this fasting food, meaning, okay, this kind of food is not okay for fasting, but certain other foods are okay. So these you can eat. Now, the initial concept when it first came was to have a deprivation of your food. That way your body gets a rest. Your digestive system gets a rest and you become more energized. After a fast, if you fast for a whole day, the next day you'll feel more energized because now the body has done less metabolism, less digestion, and you are in a lighter state of mind. So to help with the process, to help cope, because everybody cannot handle hunger for that long, they came up with these ideas of putting some sustenance in these fasting foods. Here's what happens today. People pig out on the fasting food because, hey, this is fasting food. I can eat this. No. Don't fast. If that's your concept of fasting, don't fast. Eat your regular meal and don't even bother with the concept. If you are going to fast, either stay hungry all day and understand why that is being done, to cleanse your body, to feel a little bit of deprivation. That's the spiritual, metaphysical reason for it is to feel that deprivation, to understand how grateful you should be for the food that you've been getting and just taking for granted. If you've never felt hungry, if you just eat by habit and never felt the pangs of hunger, for a day you've felt that. And now you know, hey, God has blessed me. I get food on a regular basis. Some people don't get that. That's the other reason behind fasting. You're defeating that purpose altogether by eating this fasting food and finding a loophole to fool God. Not fooling anyone. So that's my take on fasting and on the diet and some of the things about the Kundalini process and why you need to eat a vegan diet and why sometimes you may need to eat meat and why sometimes the body or the energy, when it prompts you, you might need to use some substances for its purposes. It's doing some very bizarre, very weird things that normal physiology and normal people may not be able to understand. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be followed. Okay? I hope that talk on fasting and the diet was helpful. So yes, use veganism. It's very, very wonderful. Use fasting, but do it the right way. And then you'll get the most benefit. Do it with mindfulness. Do it with awareness. Do it to get some gain out of it. Don't do it as a force of habit. This is the common theme in all of my videos, and I'm going to repeat that here as well. If you fast, do it for the right purpose. Or don't fast. If you eat a vegan diet, don't make a fetish out of it. Okay? And ultimately understand why all of this is being done and focus on that purpose, the higher divine purpose. I hope that was helpful. Namaste.